Before 1675, Sweden's great power realm was under severe strain. The army was fighting in Brandenburg, the navy was neglected, and the trade routes of the Baltic Sea were under threat. When Denmark declared war on Sweden and the Scanian War began, control of the sea became absolutely decisive. Whoever commanded the Baltic could shape the entire course of the conflict. The Swedish fleet assembled to confront the Danish-Dutch force, setting a course that led straight toward the coast of Öland. This is the story of the warship Kronan, a proud Swedish man-of-war that met a tragic end. Francis Sheldon was the English master shipwright called to Sweden to strengthen the navy. No one knows exactly what she looked like 350 years ago. Since 1980, marine archaeological excavations have been carried out at the site where the ship went down. Bronze cannons and thousands of other artifacts can be seen at the Kalmar County Museum. Only a handful of sketches survive in the archives, but here is an early version of Kronan's stern from 1660, both on paper and at sea. Two other interpretations of Kronan are shown side by side, the magnificent version based on Münniken's painting and the more restrained, technical form from Hagg's drawing.
In 1676, King Charles XI of Sweden rules the realm, and he has appointed Lorentz Creutz as Admiral General. On Skeppsholmen, some of the kingdom's largest workshops were built. Here, the master shipwright Francis Sheldon oversaw the construction of Kronan, an enormous vessel for its time. She measured nearly 53 meters in length, more than 12 meters in width, and carried over 100 guns. Under Sheldon's direction, this giant ship grew plank by plank, becoming almost twice the size of the famous warship Vasa.
Det sägs att Kronan ska vara det största skeppet i mannaminne.
Loading Kronan was an immense undertaking. Guns, gunpowder, ammunition, food, and beer all had to be brought aboard. The great mast crane lifted the heaviest pieces while the men carried barrels and coils of rope in long lines. Everything took place under the eyes of the Admiral General, who would soon lead the entire fleet into war.
Admiral Lorentz Creutz låter här bevittna hur regelskeppet Kronan lastas vid Stockholms hamn. Må hon snart utlåpa till rikets tjänst och stärka Sveriges makt på Östersjön.
The crew of Kronan was made up of men from across the entire realm. One of them walks toward the harbor with a sense of anticipation. Before him, the great ships lie moored.
Måtte vinden står och spy.
And as he sets foot on Kronan's deck, he becomes part of the mighty force that will soon set sail. Admiral General Lorentz Creutz, here in his admiral's cabin, carries the responsibility for the entire Swedish fleet, despite having limited experience in naval warfare.
The crew worked tirelessly, securing the cannons and other cargo on board.
Hur många kanoner har vi surat?
Minst en skock!
In front of the Tre Kronor castle, the ships moved slowly out through the fairway, with Kronan and Svärdet among the foremost. When the fleet sailed out of Stockholm in the spring of 1676, it soon numbered nearly 60 Swedish ships. Later, the fleet lay anchored at Älvsnabben along the coast, tightly gathered and waiting for departure. Creutz had been given a clear order to seek out and defeat the Danish fleet, secure dominance in the Baltic Sea, and then land Swedish troops in Pomerania.
Below deck it was cramped and dark. In calm weather, the gun ports could be opened to let in more light.
Admiral Lieutenant Claas Uggla and Commander Anders Homan served aboard Svärdet, ensuring that the crew maintained unified order as the fleet approached Denmark.
Här är kommendör Anders Homan. Lova till skipsfolket trädet sina poster. Och göra skipet redo att möta fienden.
Between Rügen and Bornholm, the fighting had intensified. The Swedes were superior in number, but many of the crews were poorly trained and had received unclear instructions regarding tactics and signals. Despite their strength, they struggled to maintain order in the line, and instead set their course toward Trelleborg. On the shore, the admirals gathered together with the king, whose dissatisfaction with Creutz hung heavily in the air. Despite their disagreement, they pointed out the next objective. The Swedish fleet was to retake Gotland, no matter the cost.
During the night, the experienced Dutchman Cornelis Tromp arrived, serving as General Admiral of the Danish fleet. His presence changed everything. Suddenly, the Swedes faced a united and determined enemy.
Det syns med at en stor storm og orkan står for dørene, og at vi med mig anfortrodde skepp og krigsfolk snart skulle prøves av Østersjön så bestandighet.
As the fleet struggled north along the coast of Åland, the sky darkened. The wind shifted, clouds rolled in, and the sea rose in heavy swells. At the same time, the Danish flag Dutch force was closing in. In the hard gale, the ships were pressed tightly together, and Kronan, Svärdet, and the rest of the fleet understood that the coming hours would decide everything. Below deck on Svärdet, the men fought against smoke and the rolling of the ship as the first cannon was fired. The shot thundered through the hull, its echoes spreading across the storm-tossed sea. Aboard Kronan, Creutz heard the report and immediately ordered the ship to turn, answering with cannon fire as they moved to meet the approaching enemy. In the fierce wind, the great vessel began to swing slowly, pressed by the gusts while the guns were loaded and the ports stood open. As Kronan heeled ever more steeply, the sea was forced in through the gun ports. Water crashed over the deck beams, extinguishing lanterns and dragging men and equipment with it into the darkness. On deck, the crew realized the ship could no longer be saved. In sheer desperation, men threw themselves over the rail into the icy water, where the waves swallowed them one by one. Seconds later, the fire reached the powder magazine. A violent explosion tore Kronan apart and filled the sky with smoke, flame, and burning wreckage. The Swedish ships lost their order as the shock spread through the line. The Danes saw their chance and cut in between the scattered Swedish vessels. Svärdet, forced to reduce speed as her commander Claas Uggla tried to avoid Kronan's wreck, suddenly found herself isolated. Enemy ships closed around her, sail by sail, until Uggla stood alone against an overwhelming ring of gun muzzles. Svärdet had already struck her colors to surrender after losing her mainmast when fire suddenly broke out on board. In the confusion after the battle, the Danish fireship Tone mistook her capitulation and accidentally set the hull ablaze. Within moments, the motionless ship was transformed into a burning inferno. Farther out at sea, the Danish ships could be seen pressing forward, close behind the panic-stricken Swedish vessels trying to withdraw. The chaos after Kronan's fall had opened the way, and the enemy seized every opportunity they were given. In the days following the catastrophe, wreckage and bodies drifted toward the coast at Hulterstad on Öland. The sea carried with it the remains of ships and men, torn apart by the explosion and the storm. Villagers stood helpless on the shore as the remnants of the battle slowly washed up before them. At the churchyard in Hulterstad, the deceased were laid to rest.
Herre, giv deras själar ro i ditt eviga ljus.
Back in Stockholm after many losses along the way home, the same sailor now walks back along the path where it all began, his head lowered and his steps heavy. Before the Naval Commission, Anders Holman was one of the most crucial witnesses among the few surviving sailors, marked by what they had endured. The questions fell heavily, and each answer carried traces of the chaos at sea.
Jag sa elden taga flera skepp, och havet sluka hundrade, och åter hundrade man.
The epitaph of Anders Holman still hangs in Kalmar Cathedral, a quiet reminder of a man who survived the catastrophe but carried its shadows for the rest of his life. As the present shifts back to 1686, we see his funeral, the church filled with light, sorrow, and reverence.
Må Herren ledsaga hans sjal till frid bortom storm och strid.
In the morning light, the sea lies still over the place where Kronan and other ships went down, and hundreds of men lost their lives. Far below, bronze cannons and fragments of the wreck remain resting in the darkness.